Hello guys, and welcome back to the Stacey West YouTube channel for the last video of 2023. I am Ben, and I am joined by Tom from the It's Not Orange podcast. How are you doing, mate? Are you all well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Happy New Year to you.
And to yourself. Yeah, I mean, we're the Imps are heading over to Blackpool tomorrow for the for the reverse of the fixture earlier in the year. So we might as well open with that. I know it's probably not a game that you want to relive anytime soon, but as we looked back at it over the course of the season, obviously, the Imps won 3-0 at Central Bank, and it was a game that was defined by two penalties, I think, really. I mean, we looked at everything that went on around it, and we didn't really have much of an attacking threat outside the penalties. I mean, obviously, you guys set up then, I think you were in a 5-3-2. And it just, I mean, I think it fell apart a little bit. I think you had a man sent off, and then that was basically the end of the game. I mean, have things changed much since then? Are you still setting up in the same sort of manner? How have you seen the season go for you guys?
Yeah, so we haven't deviated from 3-5-2 all season, to be honest with you. It's an ever-going theme with the Blackpool fans that have frustrated them quite a lot, because when things are not going to plan, we don't switch up sort of tactics or give the opposition something different to think about, really. I remember the game quite well against you guys. I mean, Hamilton had a decent chance with an open goal, and we had a few chances when Rhodes sort of come on and tried to I think it was his debut, actually. But yeah, like you say, it was those decisions that changed it, and they were penalties, to be fair, and we lost our heads a little bit, and that's been a reoccurring theme all season away from home. Obviously, back being at home tomorrow, we're a bit more confident, but away from home, we're a team without an identity, and like you say, it's kind of kept going in that way this season. We're top of the league in terms of the form guide, and about 15th or 16th in the away guide, which sees us sort of 6 or 7 points away from the playoffs in a similar position to yourselves. And that's where the frustration's been. If we've been somewhat better away from home, then we're in the top 3 or 4. And if we've been even worse at our place, then we'd probably be towards the bottom of the league.
Yeah, I mean, sort of looking through the results, there's a lot of, particularly since probably about November sort of time, you don't seem to be drawing many games. It's an either-or situation at the minute. I think, I mean, looking at this, yeah, you've got, mainly wins at home, and like you say, mainly losses away. Have you been able to sort of try and pinpoint what's causing that? I mean, is it just a confidence thing, like you've alluded to, or is it just kind of, your home ground is kind of your fortress, and that's where you're at your strongest? Is that, how have you seen it?
Yeah, I hate to be severely negative, but at home we've been tested a few times this season. When we've lost. We lost to Northampton, we lost to Derby, we lost to Peterborough. We've drew to the likes of Leyton Orient and Port Vale at home, and we're beating the sides that you expect to beat. So your Shrewsburys, your Carlisles. We had a good victory against Stevenage at home, but yeah, I think we've identified the fact that we haven't changed systems, and we're quite predictable. We went 1-0 down to Burton on Boxing Day, and we didn't have a shot on target, and they haven't won a game since October, and it's really a game we should be asserting ourselves onto and coming away with a victory. But we didn't even have a shot on target against Cambridge. We went 2-1 down after taking the lead, and then we didn't have any ideas because we just set up in the same way, and it was comfortable for them. So it's definitely our away form that's stopped us this season, and potentially could be our downfall for the rest of it. But we don't look like turning the tide anytime soon away from home. I think Tuesdays. When did we play? Was it Tuesday in the league? I forgot. I'm forgetting what day.
Friday. It's whatever day it is. It's that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah. So no, it was Friday, wasn't it? Of course it was. Yeah. So it was Friday against Port Vale, and it was by far the worst performance of the season, in my opinion. We looked like a team that has just started to play with each other, and we were woeful, to say the least. So away from home, it's just been a sad story, really, and it's split the fan base in terms of, is Critchley the right man for the job, because he's really stubborn with his side, and you've got to put some of it on the players as well, of course. That they don't look like footballers at points. at home we are better, but is that because sides come up and sort of respect us and therefore let us play our game a little bit, and therefore you see sort of Critchley's plans come to fruition a little bit. But when teams don't let us play, then we certainly don't look like a side that has replicated that form at Bloomfield Road this season.
Fair enough. I mean, look, let's on the whole, just sort of talk about the season so far. I mean, were you kind of hoping to be higher up the table than you were at the start of the season? Was it we seeing this as maybe a season of consolidation before mounting a bigger charge next season? And is it kind of met or not quite hit your expectations so far, just in terms of the table and where you guys are at the minute?
Yeah, I think if you take being where we are on the table aside, really, it's more the performances and the reason Blackpool fans are struggling a little bit. And like I said, I hate to repeat myself, is because of that away form, and Blackpool fans travel in numbers and make a lot of noise, but we're just useless, really. The expectations from the club and the message that they sort of portrayed at the start of the season is we would be mounting a promotion challenge. So therefore, the fans got on board with that. But signings and recruitment weren't good in the summer. Well, it was fairly good, but probably just not quite enough of where we probably expected. Signed some good players like Pennington and Norburn. Cole Joseph now is back from injury. Hasn't really had a run of games to sort of show us what we want to do. Obviously, we've got Rhodes in, who's top goal scorer in the league. Karamoko Dembele on loan, who's an exceptional talent. But the message from the club was, we've got a top 6, top 8 budget, and we'll be pushing for playoffs. But because of that away form, I as a realist can't see us mounting really a playoff charge at this moment. However, League One's a funny league, isn't it? And sometimes the tide can change a little bit. In terms of my expectations, I fully expected us to be in the playoffs, regardless of that relegation last season. You look at the league, and there is probably about 10 teams that you expect to be in and about where that playoffs is, and we should be one of them, in my opinion. Obviously, there's 21 games to go. That's the season's not over, but the more we can't pick up those away performances / victories, and we've played 2 games more than most, meaning we're now about 7 or 8 points away, and if you don't keep winning away, then we could be 12, 13, 14 points away. Even with 15 games to go, that's almost impossible to claw back.
No, fair enough. I mean, I agree. I think that I think there was a lot of expectation, or maybe hope, from our side as well. At the start of the season, and then obviously we've had the injury issues that we have, and it's basically decimated our attacking line. So yeah, I think for different reasons, I think there'll be a lot of Blackpool and Lincoln fans kind of feeling almost the same at the moment. But you've mentioned Jordan Rhodes there. I mean, obviously, a player that when you're going into New Year's Day and he's already got 15 for the season in the league, it's players like that you think, okay, right, maybe is he keeping that glimmer of hope alive for you guys? I mean, obviously, that sort of return is incredibly impressive. I mean, you've also got goals throughout the squad as well. I can see, just looking down the list, you mentioned Dembele, he's got a couple. I think Kenny Dougal's got 3. A man who's very familiar to Lincoln fans,
Of course.
in that respect. But yeah, you are seeing goals pop up across the side. But the focal point is obviously Jordan Rhodes. I mean, how is he? Just how crucial is he, I guess, to you guys at the minute?
Could be crucial for one more game, I suppose, if Huddersfield decide to recall him. So he's been inspired. Has been more a flame in this team than a sort of a little light, because he's found his arguably found his league at the moment, because he had a few years in the Championship where he didn't really play consistently. But he's what any team would want. He's scored all sorts of goals this season, from headers to inside the box tap-ins, obviously to penalties, to smart finishes. He breaks up the play really well. He's very smart, extremely fit. He plays 90 minutes almost every week. The frustration is we don't create a lot of chances in behind, and like I said, away from home, that's practically useless. I'm not comparing him to Haaland or anything, but when City kind of get blocked out, or they put 3 or 4 men on him, and he's very quiet. Yeah. Away from home, we have that a lot. Although he scored a fair few goals away from home, they've predominantly come at Bloomfield Road. But clearly, I would want him for the rest of the season. If you take his goals out with Dembele's creativity, then we'd be a team, pretty much lackluster in the final third, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Fair enough. I mean, let's have a look at a couple of the names in the squad that will be familiar to Lincoln fans as well. I mean, obviously, going down the list, there's a few players there that catch the eye. I mean, obviously, Matty Virtue was with us
Hmm.
for pretty much the full season. Last season, I think it was. And then we've got the likes of Callum Connolly, who we've had on loan. We had on loan from Everton, and Tash and Oakley Booth as well, who kind of was a bit part player at Lincoln. I mean, obviously, Matty aside, obviously he's been at Blackpool for quite a while now. But the other two guys in the squad there, Callum and Tashan, how have you seen them? Have they? I'm looking at the stats. I'm seeing that they haven't really been too much involved. But of what you've seen of them, have they been players that you think could fit into your system there?
Connolly is very much a part of Critchley's plans. He was a signing of his, and he's failed to impress this season. I mean, he started again on Friday, and it's just not cutting it. We've seen glimpses of Connolly over the seasons in the central midfield position where we've been crying out for players like him, and it's a shame really he hasn't evolved a career in that position. Or, to be honest with you, a back four because of Critchley's 3-5-2. We've been isolated weirdly at the back sometimes, or he's been left away out of position. But if you look at Port Vale's goal, their first goal on Friday, he's not there, and there's two central defenders straight in position, and they pass the ball to the left, and there's literally no one in, and Garrity's in and scores. And Tashan Oakley Booth is a bit like you. I know Lincoln fans are not fond of him, and there's big reasons for that. And he's beyond poor, in my opinion. He had one half decent game against Oxford where they had about 6 or 7 injuries plus illness in the squad with no Brannigan in there, and he was tidy enough. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't an attacking intent player. He's played in the EFL Trophy, and again, he's looked okay. Would I want him as a part of my team or starting? If I'm being honest, nowhere near the team. Connolly is just a shame. He's just not that player this season. If I'm honest, I've got nothing against the guy. He's a versatile player. And he's a squad player, but unfortunately, I wouldn't like to see him start either when you've got Ollie Casey, Pennington, and amongst others at the back. Husband as an example, Ekpateta. I'd just rather those in a back three or back four, if I'm honest, and him to be maybe pushed up in more the central position. He's been used as a wing back at a couple of points this season, and Callum Connolly isn't a wing back, not even a right back really in a back four. So he's been used a lot this season, very much in the wrong positions, and therefore he hasn't created a very good relationship with the Blackpool fans over the last 20 or so games. Nothing against the guy. He's a very inspired and dogged character, but again, it's just been one of the frustrations at the back this season, if I'm honest.
Fair enough. And obviously, like I said, Matty Virtue was a player that we fell in love with a little bit at Lincoln.
Yeah, I hope that he gets a start Monday. Is tomorrow.
Yes,
For Christmas. If I'm honest, he's back from injury and he drives you up the pitch. He breaks into space and he's not afraid to have a shot on goal. And we've been severely lacking that this season, apart from Ollie Norburn's cracker against Bristol Rovers, our goal of the season so far. It's probably his first or second time he's had a proper shot on goal, whereas Virtue, we know, is, and he's got an engine on him when he's not injured, and obviously that injury at you guys obviously done him rotten. Really, he's had 3 bad injuries in the past few seasons, and I feel for the guy, really, I do. I think Critchley signed a contract with him his first tenure at the club, and I hope, to be honest with you, he gets to run of games because we need something different in that midfield at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he was a player that he seemed to fit in well with us last season, and really a bit of a standout of a League One midfielder for us. I think a lot of us were clamouring for him to come back, and then we went and signed Ethan Arahan and Ethan Hamilton, who I think Hamilton's probably kind of in the same mould as Virtue. He likes to get forward. He's got a shot on him as well. Yeah, he's an excellent player, and he's been one of the shouts player of the season so far for us. I think he's been excellent, and it's taken the sting away of losing Matty a little bit, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, so moving on to tomorrow. I mean, obviously, you guys, very strong home record. We are currently struggling for attacking intent and goals. It's one of those where I'm probably not feeling overly confident about coming away from anything, coming away from the game with anything, should I say. How have you guys seen, you know, us, if you've been keeping an eye on Lincoln or any of Lincoln's players at all? Is there anything that you've seen from Lincoln aside from, you know, the victory earlier in the season, that's made you kind of think about tomorrow in a slightly different way, or, you know, how do you see it going?
I think the thing for me with Lincoln, and like you say, without your injuries, you're a playoff side. In my opinion, I think you've got some players in the middle of the park that can control the game, and defensively, you've got players that can hit people on the counter attack and put pressure on really well. Those injuries and that lack of attack has enabled you to just be a bit blunt this season, hasn't it? And probably not be the team that you want to be. So, do I expect a victory tomorrow? Absolutely. If we were sort of up and down at home, best way to put this, if we weren't as consistent, at home, I'd be more worried about the game. I think, I'm not saying this is going to be a comfortable victory by any stretch of the imagination, but if we don't attack the game like we should be at Bloomfield Road, then you'll be within a chance. If we are off our game, and to be honest with you, against Bristol Rovers, we let them in 2 or 3 times. So despite your lack of attacking options, there will be opportunities in the game where you will get in behind on those wings. And there'll be times where, you know, you're blunting us in attack, and you've got that ability to counter-attack us, because despite playing a 3-5-2, those two obviously wing-backs, like any traditional 3-5-2, are up the pitch when we are attacking, and therefore, like Callum Connolly's been found out of position many a time, and when you've got some pace in behind, then you've got every opportunity against someone like Husband to get in on goal. So I wouldn't say all hope's lost for Lincoln. I'll take you very seriously. I think with your injuries, you're pushing playoffs, and you found a very consistent sort of theme in terms of being able to do that season upon season. As you know, against Blackpool, you're very decent in the playoffs, a very, very good side that year. And I think you're 1 or 2 signings off and an injury-free season from really being a consistent side within that league, more so at the top of the table, of course. I don't like seeing Lincoln mid-table. I think you're a very good team, and you've come from, you know, humble beginnings, I suppose, in that respect. You've built up very consistently over the years, and that's what I really like about Lincoln. You haven't just sort of been there and thereabouts all season. You've built a real progression over the last sort of 10 years, and that's, you know, I respect that a lot. And you always sign very decent players. The name escapes me. Is it Hamilton? From who did you sign from Sutton?
Ali Smith.
Yeah, has he been involved too much this season? Because
so
he was
he's played in every game. He's played at least a part in every game, either, you know, starting or being off the subs bench. I think he's not. There's a section of fans that haven't taken to him as well as others. I think he's being asked to play slightly out of his preferred position. I mean, he's been played as a winger on a couple of occasions, and, you know, I think he seems to be more of a central midfielder than anything else. So it's a tricky one. You know, when you it's a tricky one when, you know, he's trying to play his best game, but it's just unfortunately not able to at the minute. And I think, you know, particularly when we don't have the quality in front of him that I think he might need to help move the ball down the pitch a little bit. I think that's where he struggles a little bit. But I mean,
central attacking areas, isn't he? Like,
yeah, I mean, but personally, I like Ali Smith. I think he's a decent player. I think he's maybe had the short end of the stick a little bit so far. But there's definitely a player in there for the future. And I think, you know, I think if he can just find a little bit of consistency, then he'll be fine. I think it's just we're kind of square pegs and round holes at the moment, and unfortunately, I think sometimes he's kind of been asked to do what he's not used to doing. But yeah, I think he's fairly decent. So let's go for it. Let's have a prediction from you for tomorrow. I mean, I know, like you say, you're kind of expecting a win. To be honest, I would snap anybody's hand off if we could take a point away from tomorrow, but I can't necessarily see it happening. So, you know, let's have a prediction from you.
Very much needed clean sheet tomorrow, and I'll say 2-0. But if I was to guess a more closer game, I would say sort of 2-1. We concede sloppy goals at the moment, and it wouldn't surprise me if you scored. So I'll go with an optimistic 2-0, should I say, because it's at home. But nothing to do with you guys. But it's up to us what we want to do this season if we want to build on that away. But I'll say continuation of our good home form, and I say 2-0 win.
There we go. Well, like I said, I'm not confident. I would be delighted if we could take a point tomorrow, but I'm not anticipating too much. But in the meantime, Tom, floor's yours. For 20, 30 seconds or so, if you let everybody know where they can find you and your content, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, of course. So we're on all sort of podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. And we're just called It's Not Orange Podcast, and we're on X as It's Not Orange Pod. We do weekly sort of podcasts, of course, previews, reviews. We did one obviously for the game at Sinsel Bank earlier, and with Charlie, it was excellent. But yeah, we've got some good guests on, Gary Bowyer and Mandy Morrison coming up, and a few others really. But yeah, no, absolutely, thank you.
No worries. Thank you ever so much for joining us, Tom. Look, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we can both enjoy the game tomorrow in whatever ways possible. And a happy new year to yourselves and all the Blackpool fans, and of course to all the Imps that are watching.
No worries. Happy new year to you too.
So cool. Right, we'll see you soon. And until then, guys, up the Imps.